everybody. I am Lisa Cressman. I'm an Episcopal priest and the founding steward of Backstory Preaching. And I am very pleased to welcome Sister Miriam Elizabeth Bledsoe of the Order of St. Helena, and the Reverend Jim Said, who is Rector of St. Augustine's of Canterbury in Augusta, Georgia. We're here to offer this video for you as you are learning to prepare your own online memorial services. Sister Miriam Elizabeth's mother died recently, and Jim was the clergy person who helped her and the family figure out the best way to remember Miriam Elizabeth's mother, Catherine. So I am going to let them tell you the story. Miriam Elizabeth?
Thank you, Lisa. It's an honor to be with you to tell this story. My mother was hospitalized the middle of March with some upper respiratory issues. There was a suspicion that she had COVID-19. She was put into isolation, and within just a few days, died of that respiratory failure. We were called to the hospital as she was dying. She was in an isolated room. By the time we got there, got all of the PPE on, she took her last breath as we entered the room. And it was heartbreaking for us, as it is for a lot of families right now. We elected to have her cremated, which was not the original plan, but is the least expensive, most efficient, safest way to handle remains in this particular time period in the middle of a pandemic. To have to make a decision that might be against what they had planned originally. So that would be the first thing that I would offer, that you may have to make plans that are not in line with the plans you had. And it became evident that there was no way we were going to be able to gather the family who live across many states. There's no way we were going to be able to do that. And so I suggested to my family that we might have a gathering over Zoom that would be sort of a grace holder, is the word I come up with. That it would not be in lieu of gathering in person when we could do that safely, but would be a way for us to hold one another and hold my mother together in the time being. And my family was in agreement about that and eager for that. So I called my friend Jim Said and said, I need a favor. Because I was. So Jim very graciously agreed. We are of the Anglican Episcopal tradition. So I put together words of the burial rite out of the Book of Common Prayer. I chose one lesson, one psalm that we might all say together. And Jim presided. And we met at his church. We set up a Zoom shot. So myself, my brother, my sister-in-law were all in front of the screen. We had a little opening between us where my mom's picture was. We brought the Paschal candle out. That was lighted beside her photo. Jim stood up a step behind that. So we had a pretty good visual, I thought, of what was happening there. And for all kinds of reasons, some of my family is churched, some are not. Some are Episcopalian, some are not. So lack of familiarity with the rite, not a lot of comfort with the technology, had a very small window of time to participate. And so we elected that nobody would preach, which was just a very intentional choice for all of those reasons, but certainly no reason why somebody else might make a different decision. We also elected not to have any music. And again, that was a conscious decision about time. In person, there will be a lot of that. So again, this was not in lieu of this other thing that is coming in our future, but a way to hold us in grace. So, Jim, what do you have to say? What do you have to offer to that?
Well, I love your term grace holder.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what really helped me, because we didn't have a body. In our tradition, you normally have cremains or a body to do the burial rite. So this was all new for me as well. And one of the things I think that benefited us was basically setting the stage ahead of time, so we had an idea of how this was going to go through. And I have someone who can do this in my parish, gave us a 250-foot land connection, Ethernet connection, so into the church from the church office, so that we had as much power. Now we do have a pretty good Wi-Fi system, but in this case, we couldn't afford for anything to get dropped or anybody to have that hour ball or that circle. So preparing that ahead of time and then getting the visual down, at least it was important to me so that I could understand how we were going to do this. One of the things that I noticed, however, which is very similar many times in other funerals, is the family was so glad to see everybody on Zoom. We spent a few minutes ahead. Sister Miriam spent a few minutes ahead of time helping people, and I kept hearing this, "Oh, it's so good to see you. We haven't seen you in so long." And so you had that, even though it was a very sad time, it was also, in a sense, a happy time, because you got to see people that you hadn't seen in a long time, and to hear their voices on the other end, and they were talking to each other on the technology. And it's very much like sometimes what happens at a viewing, or sometimes before that. So I think that helped immensely. And Sister Miriam spent a lot of time with folks, making sure that they could get on the Zoom connection, so that there was not a problem, so that anybody that had never experienced logging in understood what was going on. And
we did that ahead of time.
Ahead of time.
Helpful. Mm-hmm. Right. I gave people sort of a practice window. Yeah, that was helpful. We connected to 22 people across 6 states. Right. We had 4 people. We had 4 people in the church, actually, and the rest were online. Right. We had somebody who FaceTimed their elder mom who couldn't quite figure out Zoom, and that worked. So she was on Zoom, she FaceTimed her mom, held the phone out, right? So, yeah. And while our gathering was perhaps smaller than others might be, I certainly think a larger crowd could be managed. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think now, since people are used to this, I have 3 people in my congregation that are designated hosts. Mm-hmm. And those folks now can facilitate and be behind the scenes, muting people that need to be muted and unmuting people that are reading lessons. And we're getting used to this because that's how we do our worship service. That could very easily be employed if you had 50 to 100 people on the call.
Because the other piece that we made a conscious decision about was we didn't put words on the screen. I sent out the rite in a Word document to everybody and said, either print this or be able to pull it up on your screen or a second screen, whatever your choice is, but we will not be sharing a screen of words, because I was pretty committed, and partially out of my backstory preaching experience, that live faces on the screen really contribute to the building of community, even with people who know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And every single person said to me that was the most important thing.
Yeah.
Afterward.
Mm-hmm.
So it was sort of a confirming piece for me going forward.
All of the prep that you did, there was as much prep that went into planning this as one would prep for an in-person service.
Right. And some of those same decisions guided the Zoom service.
Uh-huh.
You listen to the wishes of the family and provide what best fits the family, not what really you think. That's very similar to how we do other funerals, and you guide people that don't really know what they want, but if they do know what they want, then you let them do that. And this was really completely different than anything I'd ever experienced, and they sure as heck didn't teach us anything about this in seminary.
Right. All of the pastoral care tenets that we all know held. Mm-hmm. Right. I said to my brother, I think we should do this. And if you'll let me, I'll just make all the decisions this time around. And when we gather in person, we'll do it together. Mm. And he was more than happy for that to happen.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And I'm also aware in this time, in the middle of this pandemic, that a Zoom funeral might be all that a family has. Mm-hmm. And so part of what I would say to that is, it is sufficient. It is enough. While we certainly all plan to come together again in person and bury my mom's ashes, I am readying myself for the Zoom funeral to be the funeral for a long time to come.
Yeah.
And it is sufficient in my heart. Yeah, I could not have been more grateful, more comforted by Jim's willingness to engage this with me. Interestingly, afterward, I heard from every single person that was on the call who said, "That was so lovely. Thank you so much. It was so great to see everybody." And we're glad for anybody to use that to contact us. Our contact information is on the document. Yeah.
Thank you both very much. I really appreciate the time, and I know the viewers will as well. So blessings on the rest of this day, and thank you both for your ministries.
Thank you.
Thank you.